I'm Erin Lawler-Patterson, the Goodness Chick. I'm an addictions counselor, motivational speaker, author, and parent coach. Join me on the journey of navigating the joys and pitfalls of life, addressing parenting, giving back, mental health, addiction, and relationships. If it takes a village, then join me as one of those villagers. Villagers wanted. So I hope you are having a great week so far. I'm so excited you're here to join me in today's episode, and I want to kind of open things up and saying I'm so proud to announce that Fire Mountain Residential Treatment Center is now an official sponsor of Goodness Chick. To kind of give you a little background with Fire Mountain, in 2009, Aaron Huey and Christine Porta began to take in teens who were struggling, which I just said believe speaks volumes about their character and their heart. Both of their efforts and their heart ultimately led them to form a 40-acre, fully staffed residential treatment facility. This is located in Colorado at the gates of the Rocky Mountain National Park. It serves teens and their families from all over the United States. They provide a level of care and support that really has long-term results for kids and their families. They also specialize in empowerment camps, which I think is so cool and amazing and needed for children and teens. And this bear tribe has reached thousands of kids. You know, when we break it down, man, we have so many young people that are hurting, struggling when it comes to mental health and addiction. You know, it's kind of human nature at times that we just kind of want to hope that these issues, these challenges will go away. But the reality is when we bring on acceptance and we connect that with the appropriate treatment, it can and does save lives and families. I love that this program is outdoors based. Oh my gosh. I love the challenge that it throws at young people at every level and the providing support that's just out of this world. As someone who's worked in the mental health and addiction field for many years with teenagers, when you work with kids, man, they become your kids, and you want to be able to hand their hand over to somebody that is supportive and dynamic when it comes to treatment. And a lot of times it's hard. It's hard to find that right treatment center, that right support, the right services. And it was a struggle that I've run into for many years. I'm working as a high school addictions counselor. And Fire Mountain has really just knocked my socks off. It's for teens aged 12 to 17. The program length is 4 to 14 months. It's to settle their anxious nervous systems, move past depression, hit the reset button with school, getting sober, stop hurting themselves, and most importantly, getting the life skills that they need to succeed, become empowered, develop self-concept, and really reintegrate, which is huge, back into their communities as responsible, contributing young adults. Parents are required to participate in the family's recovery, which I think is critical. It's critical, and too often you have programs that the family component is not required, or it's a weak link in the treatment process. And when it's one of the strong links in the whole chain of recovery, man, it's so important. And that's one of the things I really love about this program. I encourage you to hop on their Facebook page, Fire Mountain Residential Treatment Center, or online, firemountainprograms.com. Erin also has a podcast that is awesome. It's beyondriskandback.com. You can also listen to it on the Mental Health News Radio Network. And I'm really pumped to be able to be collaborating and having them sponsoring Goodness Chick. I just think I'm stoked and excited, and you'll be hearing more about the program, as we go into the future, kind of going hand in hand with this, talking about mental health, talking about addiction. I'm now a little over 3 months in, which is crazy, with my 12-month around the world trek that's incorporating not just travel, obviously traveling, seeing things, experiencing things, but being able to connect Goodness Chick with this, talking, interacting, interviewing people from all over the world, and kind of wanted to put your way some of the lessons that I've learned in the time that have been away, and now knowing like 9 months left of our journey,
I do believe in reflecting at different seasons and different times in our life throughout the course of the year. I think if we don't do that, we kind of get really caught up very easily and we lose track of what our goals and our objectives are and maybe things we could possibly learn from or that have made us better. So with our traveling, one of the things that I just have adored and have really gotten so much out of has been realizing and knowing how small the world really is. And that when it comes to mental health and addiction, so many of us have people that are hurting, are suffering. And I think a lot of times we, just kind of like how with the intro with Fire Mountain, we have people that we love, and so often we can kind of not want reality to be reality. And we can keep our eyes closed and we can kind of be in denial and we can kind of say, you know what, this will go away. And what I've just been in awe of is the different conversations I've had with so many people in the past few months that either are in recovery, are working with people on the front lines as counselors and treatment centers, whatever, and how much lighter our load is when we begin to admit, when we begin to acknowledge, when we begin to realize that help is needed. And I think really, when we kind of, we take that step forward, it's a huge step. It's a huge step. And I think, I know it's hard. I know it's so hard to say, I need help, or acknowledging that our kids in trouble, that they're struggling with an addiction, that they need, the proper level of treatment for, their mental illness that they're struggling with. We all have struggles in life, and we all have been given different stack of cards in life, but that stack and that heaviness becomes lighter when we don't go at it alone. And one of the really neat things is I had the opportunity to I went back to the States for about, I'm going to say 5.5, 6 days. It was a very, very, very quick, crazy train trip. I left from Athens, went back to Philly. I was in the South Jersey area. I did a few talks while in South Jersey, and then I headed back, and got back yesterday to Cyprus. But had the opportunity to speak to a few hundred. I did a presentation to elementary school kids and then the middle school kids. I love talking to kids. I love, love, love it. It always pushes me, challenges me. And one of the things I had shared with these young people that it just hit me, like while I was talking with them, I talked about the reality of that every single one of us, when we roll out of bed in the morning, we have this like invisible book bag that's attached to us. Every one of us. Now, the difference is all of us have invisible bricks. Some might have, we'll say none. I don't know how that's possible, but possibly we'll just say that out there, figuratively speaking. Some of us have 1, 2, 3. Some of us, our book bags are filled with bricks. What does that mean? It's the brick of anxiety, the brick of depression, different things we're struggling with, grief, loss to so many different capacities, unhealthy relationships, a breakup in a relationship. The list could go on, self-harm, eating disorders, feeling lonely. And every morning we walk out of our door, we walk to our workplace, we walk to school, we walk through our neighborhood, we in our own homes, and we carry these book bags with us, and no one can see the full extent of what your book bag looks like. Sometimes we don't even know what our book bag looks like, but we can feel it. And when our book bags are filled from 1 brick to 15 bricks, and you walk around all day, it gets heavy. Schlepping that around, it's tiring. And, as I was talking with these kids and kind of throwing out different scenarios about how it's hard sometimes to be human. It can feel like an uphill battle, but how important it is to be kind. And I talk about kindness and how it's a word we kind of throw around. I'm kind. Of course I'm kind. Who wouldn't be kind? Well, we can be unkind frequently and not even realize it. I put out there, and I've done this with myself a few times, where it's like kind of try to go through 24 hours period of a day and observe yourself, kind of like this out of body experience, where it's like observing yourself as you're interacting with somebody, as you're, in the car and somebody cuts you off, or you're, in the middle of whatever meeting at work or with a group of students studying, whatever it is, observing yourself. What comes out of your mouth? What do you say about somebody else when you're with, another person behind their back? That could be even on social media. That could be emailing, texting. And when we really kind of dissect things, sometimes we can be very unkind, and sometimes we can be very judgmental. And how does this relate to mental health and addiction? It relates big time. We have the ability to make somebody's backpack much heavier when we judge, much more labor intensive when we make assumptions. We allow words to come out of our mouths that are unnecessary and are not kind and are not uplifting. And on the other end of it, we have the ability to lighten someone's load monumentally when we interject kindness. Because here's the deal: when we interject kindness, and it's not about you going into full-fledged therapist mode, but we interject kindness, it lightens somebody's load. It allows them to be reinforced with the fact that they're not alone, that they are cared about. It could be a smile. It could be a hug. It could be, you know what, man, I just wanted to tell you that you're awesome. And it's words. We have a much easier time being negative about something, a situation, or someone than being positive. It's just kind of in a lot of our wirings. When's the last time you told somebody that I want you to think about this, let them pop in your head, okay, that face, that name, they're struggling. And you just were kind. You bought them that 99-cent cup of coffee and you left it on their desk. You left a little note to be like, just go kick butt today. There is power in our words. There's power in kindness. And every single one of us, as we schlep around our book bags every single day, what I've learned is that you can lighten someone's load so easily, whether it be by one brick or a third of a brick. It's making somebody's day a little bit heavier. And it's really, really fascinating when we kind of get on that train of empowering and interjecting and incorporating kindness into our everyday, instead of allowing negative or just complacency to kind of take charge. Kindness is everything. And as we've millions of kids going to school every day and millions upon millions of people going to work or wherever they're going every day, we have a lot of hurting people. And so, as I meet so many kinds of people from all walks of life, like every continent. Actually, Antarctica, I've not met anybody from Antarctica yet. That's on my to-do list. But like, we're all the same. And what I dig is getting to chat with other people in the helping field. And that comes in so many different facets of the helping field. But how amazing it is when you kind of allow yourself to connect with people with passionate hearts. And that obviously just doesn't need to be just the helping field, but how important it is to be energized and refilled by people that make you feel good about yourself, that encourage you. Sitting, I had all these people pop in my head, and it was like after interviews and after chats and after coffee, like, holy cow, dude, that was so awesome. I feel on top of the world. And how so many times we kind of neglect ourselves, and we go, and we're tired. And so whether that be in your working field, or whether that be in school, or whether that just be in life, allowing ourselves to be connected to positive humans that refill our tank, because we need it. And especially if you're in the helping field, man, you need it. It's like too often we burn the candle at both ends. I'll throw out another example. I had a presentation that I provided, whatever it's called, professional development I did for a number of teachers, high school and middle school teachers and counselors. And I'll tell you, for anybody who's in education, dude, it is tough. It's a tough field. It's tiring. You're wearing 30,000 different hats all at the same moment. And it's so easy to put yourself on the back burner. And for, those of you that are listening, we're like, man, I get tired. It's kind of like, you have a candle with two wicks on each side. Okay. You're holding the candle with your one hand and you light it on each end. All right. It's lit. It's burning. What happens, over time, the candle gets smaller, the wax is dripping off. And at some point there's no wick left to burn. And what do you have left? You got a stubby candle, right? What purpose is there for a stubby candle? What good can a stubby candle do? Okay, nothing, man. Stubby candle, man. It's like stubby free is the way to be, dude. It's when I think we can trick ourselves into sometimes thinking that we need to be superheroes and we need to just keep going because what would the world do without us? Saving everybody or whatever the heck it is, or I have to as mom or as this worker or as this best friend or as this counselor or as this teacher. And the reality is when we're stubby candles, we're not any good to anybody. We're not as good as a parent. We're not as effective as a teacher. We're not as consistent as a friend or a sibling or whatever it is because we're tired. We're empty. And, like one of my biggest highs on these past 3 months is when I'm connecting with another helper, chatting with them, and I'm like, I get this rush. And I know part of my wiring is I need to be, and my tank needs to be refilled. And part of that is accomplished by being with positive people, being with somebody who kind of gets it in terms of my focus and passion and just serving others and mental health and addiction. And when I make that connection, it's like, like the sky's open and it's awesome. So it's learning what makes you tick. And part of that knowing and that self-care is being around positive people and being around those people that fill your tank. When we're not, stubby candle comes forward, and when we're not, we get empty and we get tired and we get overwhelmed. Life's too short for that. Life is way too short for that. So, and as we go through, I'm actually going to shift gears a little bit here. And I think about an interview I had a few weeks ago, kind of getting back to how we look at mental health, mental illness, addiction, is big time important. And one of the things I'm going to tell you, I guess I've been frustrated with and trying to not point fingers, but to come up with solutions is that there are, so many other countries that do provide full treatment when it comes to mental health, when it comes to addiction for those hurting, residential treatment programs to counseling sessions to, detox, whatever it is. And, we have some great programs, great programs in the States. We have some not so great programs in the States. We have countless human beings who are hurting and who need help. And so I think it's so important for us as, for those of you who are Americans listening to this, coming up with some solutions and how both on a federal and state level, how do we kick things up a notch? How do we make people more comfortable with mental health? How do we make people more comfortable talking about addiction? How do we make treatment and support more accessible? And I think that's big time important, whether that be, one-on-one counseling to full-fledged treatment, and how I think us as a society becoming more comfortable talking about what help looks like, what support looks like, and not just for when you go to a program. And one of the things I love about Fire Mountain is it's the long-term, forever visual, focus. It's not just, here's treatment, we're going to get you hooked up with a follow-up treatment afterwards, and then that's it. It's life skills, because, I had said this to students I was with last week. There's 7.7 billion people in the world, and there's one you. There's one you. God made you. There's one you. There's no one else but you on this planet, but you. One you. There's one me. There's no other me. It's me. And so that time can be so much less complicated when we are in a place where we're able to work on ourselves, or when we're in a place that, it's getting the help we need. And part of that help is so much easier accessed when we as people, kind of getting into the whole kindness aspect thing again. Sometimes, when we can say, well, I would never say anything negative about, a buddy of mine who's struggling with an addiction, or, my best friend who, whatever, fill in the blank, whoever. All of us, if we were really honest, have somebody we care about that's struggling with something. When it comes to addiction, when it comes to mental illness, it's all over, and that's okay. But what are we going to do to help other people? And this is where kindness plays a role. And this is where my whole judge-free zone kind of philosophy comes in, where we could say, I would never say anything negative. But here's the deal: our body language, sometimes we don't need to say anything, because our body language says everything. And so you're like, well, what does this have to do with treatment and help and support? It has everything to do with it. Because if we, as family members, as friends, as colleagues, or whatever the heck it is, fellow peers, are uncomfortable or give off vibes that there's something wrong when it comes to somebody struggling with an addiction, or somebody with a mental illness, or the whole facet and aspect of mental health, then that if we have somebody who is hurting, who is struggling, who is floundering and feels like they're in the middle of an ocean treading water with a whole bunch of bricks in their hands, they're most certainly not going to extend their hand to you and say, man, I feel like I'm drowning. Hey, I need help. I think it might be a good idea for me to go to a counselor. Do you think there's an open bed and I can get into treatment? Whatever it is, we place barriers, we place walls, we place obstacles if we convey that they are not okay. They are weird. They are the black sheep. They are whatever. Insert those words. Our words and our body language are so important. I'm going to say now more than ever. And I tell you, we have so many hurting people, hurting people. And how we talk about these topics with our spouses, with our kids, with our best friends, with the people we work with, every area of our life, people are listening, people are absorbing. And even, it's so important for us to be careful what comes out of our mouth. It's so important to be, what kind of vibe are we sending off when it comes to, when these different topics come up. And I think one person that's hurt, or there's a wall in front of them because of someone else in terms of getting help and treatment, dude, that's ridiculous, and it's unnecessary, and it needs to stop. You don't necessarily have to agree with somebody else's lifestyle or decisions or whatever, but it's about loving one another. It's about kindness. And it's about looking at people's hearts, because really we are all the same. 7.7 billion people in the world. We need kindness. There's so much hurt. There's suffering. And our words, our smile, our kindness can do a heck of a lot. It could do a heck of a lot. And I think it's really interesting. I'm trying to think who the heck it was that I interviewed that had just said this so beautifully, where, when we give of ourselves and when we volunteer and when we go beyond ourselves, it's not only giving to somebody else, that passing that baton, but we are in turn receiving something. Being able to make the world a better place, being able to go beyond ourselves, man, it makes a difference in ourselves. And I really do think it alters how we look at the world around us. I really do. Um, I will tell you, in my years of traveling and my years of volunteering, I look at the world differently. Um, even now I'm pressing, I'm going past the 40 mark at the end of this month. I'll be 41. And, as I get older, it's kind of like, man, we get caught up in crap that just sometimes doesn't matter. A lot of times we get caught up in crap, things that just don't matter. And why am I expending energy that could be expended on something that really does matter? I'm gonna give you an example of what just kind of like just hit me. I was back in my hometown last week, and I was at a light, and on the other side of the light, I guess the light had turned green, and the person in the waiting for the red light, it had been like 3.1 seconds, and the person behind them had reached their point of you need to super proceed and hit the accelerator, started beeping like crazy, train beeping their horn, and I kind of observed this. My light was still red, and the first car goes through the light. The person that was beeping is now flailing their arms, putting their hands out the window, screaming. And I was like, it just like seriously, like a brick fell on my head. And I was like, you know what? What? And that person is not getting any further, tailgating, freaking out. And whether they're late to work or they just are, they know that there was a new shipment of clementines into the local grocery store. I don't know, but she expended so much energy and probably had a headache and just on something that was just unnecessary and trivial. And how many times do we do that? I'm going to fast forward a little bit to like probably 30 hours after that. I'm in line, going through passport control in London, at Heathrow Airport, and the line is long, man. It is long, and there's like two little stalls open, going at a snail's pace. I thought a sloth was possibly working behind the passport control thing. And I started to get kind of fidgety, and I was like, getting a little anxious and frustrated, and anger began to kind of boil. And I stopped myself, and I actually was like, Erin, so, okay, you're getting extremely frustrated. You cannot make the two people move any quicker stamping people's passports. This line is not going to get any shorter, any quicker, with you freaking out or getting upset and getting a headache. And I could feel like my heart rate pick up, and it was like, why? So instead, I hopped on my phone. I went through pictures, and I just was, I was looking through happy pictures, and it kind of reset my whole tone. And it's how often do we invest our energy in things that don't matter instead of shifting on things that do and what we're grateful for? And there's things that we just simply can't change. And it's crazy train every day. If you think about as you go through your day, there's things that we get upset about that we don't really need to be wasting our energy on, and we could be investing and focusing on something that really does matter. And part of that can be, instead of, me kind of bugging out in the passport lane, who can I shoot a smile at? Who can I kick a text to and say, what, I'm thinking about you, or I hope you had an awesome day. Kindness matters. There's a domino effect in our negative. There's a domino effect in our positive. Choice is up to us. And all of this incorporates into our everyday, and all of this incorporates into, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to addiction, and all it's like a big ball of yarn. Big ball of yarn. And how are we going to handle it? And, I'm trying to think of the exact number, and I'm going to probably not get it exact, but I think it was like the average lifespan is like, I think it's 70,000, 74,000 days. I don't know, whatever it is, something, but it's like the average life is like 75 years. And you think about how quickly life goes, and what are we really going to focus on? What are we going to allow ourselves to get super upset about and angry about And what are we going to allow ourselves to be kind about and to love one another, and to be compassionate and to be empathetic? And one of my, I'm going to say has been just heavy on my heart. One of my prayers has really been asking God to give me the ability to look at people for their hearts and not their external, and allowing myself to be more compassionate and kind, because it's too easy to make judgment calls. And when those judgment calls are made, barriers are put up. And I think about, if I add to someone's heartache, I add a headache to somebody's day, like what unnecessary, and what is necessary is for me to cast kindness, cast a smile, and because in turn, it not only is a gift to them, but it's a gift to myself. And, if I'm given 75 years on this earth, or I'm given 41 years on this earth, whatever it is, may I look at it as a gift, and may I look at it as being a servant, and being kind and striving to be the best that I can be in a way that is a positive, dynamic domino effect upon other people. And I ask that to you, how you living? If you were to have that out-of-body experience, are you being kind? Are you being judge-free? And I think all of us do. Every single one of us can work on things. Every single one of us. But are we willing to work on it? And as we go, each week that we're given, reflect, take an assessment in. How am I doing? What do I need to work on? Because when we don't do that, we lose out. We get dusty. We get super dusty, right? We lemon pledge our house. We crack those windows open. We get under those dust bunnies. We're really kind of crappy at times taking care of ourselves and reflecting on ourselves. And what do we need to work on? And what do we need to clear out? And self-care. Taking care of yourself, so in turn you can take care of other people and keep being who you were intended to be. So this is kind of like my 3-month check-in. I will tell you, man, I am in Cyprus and I'm digging it. Beautiful water, beautiful people. I'm going to be starting to do some outreach volunteer work later in the week. I'm just trying to catch up with my jet lag and get some swimming in, get some sun in, and spend time with my son and my husband, and just enjoying the simple beauties of life, because life is a gift, my friends. And I'm wishing you a beautiful week of patience, kindness, and goodness. Peace, love, and goodness, my friends.
If you enjoyed today's show, I encourage you to subscribe to Goodness Chicks podcast and pass it along to your friends. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and have a great day.